Hello, teacher and classmates. This is Alexander Vasquez, and now I'll be presenting you the method called total physical response, or the short for TPR. And this is a method that was introduced around 1977 by James Asher. And this method basically says that there is a theory that memory is actually enhanced through association with physical movements. Uh, it is thought that first we need to listen to the commands or to the language that we need to understand first, and then we need to associate those commands or language with our physical movement or physical response, and it's going to enhance memory in the long run. It also actually this method is also associated with the methods for very young children that are acquiring the language, and it's actually related to the way children acquire their mother tongue, and it is thought that this is the way they actually learn a new language. They first listen to the commands that their parents give them. Then, once they listen to that, they respond to that command and they do something. They put the command in action. And this response, this movement actually reinforces their memory, and that's how they acquire their language. Or that's what Asher says. These are very basic uh, commands at first. You know how children they react when the parents say, uh, "Pick that up," or "Sit down," or "Stand up," or very short commands. They actually understand what they are saying, what the parents are saying, and once those children respond to that, then parents they proceed to give more speech, and this works as a positive feedback. It becomes a loop. Then children does the action, the parents go like great or good job or that's the way to do it, and then that reinforces their memory, and that's how they acquire the language. Also, Asher thinks that our listening is linked to the physical response, and that the physical response actually reinforces the comprehension. Uh, he observed, in order to come up with this method, he did a research of around 25 to 30 years where he was observing children and how they responded to the parents' speech, and well, that's why he said that with the positive feedback, actually the kids were reinforcing their memory. One thing that he observed is that children actually understood some more complex commands, even though they were not able to produce the language first. And the mother tongue, they were able to understand what parents were saying, and they were able to respond to those commands, even though young children were not able to actually talk or produce that language. So he understood, or he observed that the sequence to learning is first listening, and then doing some actions with what you listen to. And he says that the actual sequence that the brain and the nervous system learns, that first is listening, and then comes speaking, and then he says that the mode to learning is synchronizing language with the physical movements. So that's pretty much the method, and my classmates are going to tell you more in a little bit.
Good afternoon. Today I'm going to talk about the theory of TPR, Total Physical Response. Total Physical Response is accredited to James Asher around the 1970s. James looked at the way in which we learn our native language, and he saw that most of children, before they even go to the school, they already know a little bit of grammar and vocabulary. As we know, in our brain, we have two hemispheres, the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere. and the left hemisphere is focused in learning language. On the other hand, in the right hemisphere the main function is our body movements. Asher says that when we are young, what we tend to do in the way in which we learn the language is to use our whole brain. It means we have to use the two hemispheres, left and right hemisphere. At the school, we mostly use our left hemisphere, and I shall try to introduce movement into the process of learning a language. When we use our whole brain, we have more capacity to learn. That was Asher says. If we are learning the vocabulary of the part of the body, then we wouldn't just listen and repeat. We can use movements in order to learn easier, to learn fastly. This method is focused on young learners. However, we can use at any age. Toral physical response is based on the coordination of a language and physical movement. In total physical response, instructor gives commands to a student in the target language with body movement, and a student responds with whole body actions. Total physical response is a result of the author experiences observing young children learning the first language. James Asher notices that interaction between parents and children often took the front of the speech from the parent, followed by a physical response from the child. There are three hypotheses based on his observation. The first one is that language is learned primarily by listening, and the second says that language learned must engage the right hemisphere of the brain. The last one, which is the third one, says that learning language should not involve any stress. You have to enjoy learning language. Total physical response is often used alongside methods and techniques, and it is popular in beginners and young learners, although it can be used with students of all levels and all age groups. Thank you. That's all. Thank you so much.
I will talk about the skills of TPR. In TPR or total physical response, listening and responding with movements or actions have two purposes. One is the quickly recognizing meaning of the language being learned and the passively understanding of structures about the language itself. Um, well, this method emphasizes the importance of listening to language development and don't require spoken output in the earliest stages. For example, children can can acquire knowledge, so uh, then when there is enough knowledge, they can communicate with their classmate or with their teacher in a most effective way. So for that is that this method don't force the students to speak because the teacher until wait that the students acquire enough knowledge and then the students start to speak uh, spontaneously. Well, almost all the class time is spent is based on listening skill and also to develop the speaking skill. And it's necessary that the teacher understand that their students don't have the enough knowledge, so the students can respond to the teacher in their native language, and then when they have enough knowledge, they can respond in a more effective way. Well, TPR is an excellent way to develop ESL students' listening and speaking skill, and students can learn in a more practical and cognitive way. When the students also associate the movements with the words, and they can also, when they are in a real world experience, they can remember the action, and they can communicate and say the word. And also a child learn through language acquisition or real application. A child doesn't understand or doesn't learn through flashcards or posters, letters. They understand through what they see. So the teacher need to make movements in order that their students understand what the teacher is trying to say to them. For example, when the teacher wants to hear what the opinion of the student, she can makes movement with her hand like this, and the students can understand that the teacher wants to hear their opinion, and that kind of movement is also called instructional commands, and like getting to hear, getting to speak, to make movements, and so students can understand. And that's all. Thank you.
Afternoon, teacher. My name is Jose Cristian Navarrete Cordova, and today I am going to talk to you about a method that is called TPR, Total Physical Response. So in this case, the majority of class time on TPR lessons is spent time doing drills with students. So the instructor gives command to a student, and a student responds with physical action, so or gesture. In this case, a teacher can apply these things in a classroom. These techniques gives commands to the student, so using imperative mood. So in this case, adjectives can work in classrooms. We can use adjective of mood, gesture. We can apply like commands, for example, in one activity that we can make, like Simon says. For example, Simon says, touch your eyes, maybe, and touch your nose, something like that. So the students can learn those commands by heart. So when they listen, for example, Simon says that touch your nose, maybe they can be alert. So alarmed by the structure of the teacher. So in this case, Simon says that touch your earth. You can touch it, and then the student can learn it new vocabulary using imperative gesture, and the teacher can facilitate the class to the students. So these techniques we can apply into classroom to make the class more active using gesture and other materials, like giving to the students some materials like a newspaper, or making some questions, and when the like hot potato, right, that we can make some question, and when the teacher is touching the blackboard or the whiteboard, we can do that activity, and then the student that have the ball in the hand, he can answer the question. So those activities we can apply, or techniques that we can apply into classroom. So this is very helpful for teacher. After they, well, in this case, by giving these techniques, a student can learn more vocabulary and more practicing new things. For example, new words and these commands. They, of course, they can learn more words, right? So, those are the techniques that I want to talk to you, and thank you for your attention. Bye.